In a world of increasing mental health challenges, psychology and faith can both provide tools for healing and wellness. This is the idea behind Journey on My Mind. Each episode, our panel of pastors and therapists sit down together to share their experiences and insights on the modern world's mental health issues: depression, loneliness, aging, addiction, and so much more. Join us now as we explore what it means to thrive at the complex intersection of spirit and psychology.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Journey on My Mind. My name is Sam Barnhart, and obviously we have a different cast of characters today, a whole different crew. So why don't we start down here with Scott? Will you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll go around everybody and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, I'm Scott Allender, and I am a coach and an Enneagram teacher, and I work with leaders and teams to help them see and solve their greatest challenges.
Awesome.
Great. I'm Katie Mullin, and I am a spiritual director and have studied the Enneagram for 22 years. Wow. And use it in my practice.
That's awesome. And then Suzie.
I'm Suzie Allender.
Yeah, you've been on here. You've been on here once or twice.
Recurring guest star.
Recurring guest star being the key word. Well, last episode we talked a little bit about with our normal crew, with Kevin and Dave. We talked about the Enneagram and kind of some of the early beginnings, just a little bit of, not a deep dive, but kind of an overview to give people an idea of what we're talking about. And we talked a little bit about the psychology of the Enneagram, a little bit about where it kind of comes from. But today we're going to talk more about how faith and the Enneagram play together, how they interact. So you all right over there, Edwin? Yeah, he's banging around something over there. Edwin, if that's even your
If we
real
did
name.
that, he would be all over us.
Yep, for sure. So, but it was really interesting right as we started to jump in, Scott was sharing a little bit about. I was just curious about the story you were telling about how more of the ancient kind of roots of the Enneagram.
Yeah. So what we were talking about is, the modern system has certainly been shaped by psychologists and thinkers in the 20th century. But early roots, you could go back. Some stories have it rooted in I can never say his name. Evagrius Ponticus, I think is his name.
Mm-hmm. Sounds about right.
Yeah.
345 AD or something like that.
A couple years ago.
A little while back, where he had observed and wrote down at least 7 of the sort of 9, what became known as the passions of your type, or the 7 deadly sins of your type. So everything, so it was anger, pride, envy, greed, sloth, lust, and gluttony. And then the system also adds fear and self-deception.
Okay.
And he observed this as these patterns that, each of the monks in his care would get distracted by these things. And when you learn the Enneagram, you learn that you have this sort of personality structure that's being held partly in place by this thing called a passion. And it's not passion like I'm passionate about cooking or I'm passionate about golfing. It's like, think of it as like a crime of passion. It's like this all-consuming emotional center that overtakes us.
You have to.
And demands to be satiated.
Okay.
It's like a vice almost, right?
Okay.
It kind of filters how we see, think, feel, and act in the world.
Yeah.
And he noticed these patterns showing up in different monks in his care in different ways. And so he captured them. And a lot of those writings got destroyed, labeled as heresy by the church and these kinds of things. But you can go back to him and some other, writers of other, of people of faith and even non-faith, where you sort of see these patterns developing. And I think that informed some of the early philosophy that then became a study of psychiatry. And then eventually the modern system, as we know it, was really kind of finalized in its current form by Claudio Naranjo, who was a Chilean psychiatrist who had been working with people for many, many years and saw these same kinds of patterns in a sort of psychological dimension.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
And the first exposure I ever had to the Enneagram was through Richard Rohr's teachings, and he came to it in the 70s.
Wow.
And it was very much used in spiritual direction with mentors and priests to each other in monasteries and in places like that.
Yeah,
and I think
the Jesuit tradition.
The Jesuit tradition is very strong with it. And so I think that was some of the earlier spiritual roots of it. And I agree with everything Scott said about what psychology has done in the 20th century.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense because evangelicals were against all of that.
Right. Yeah. So it's why we never heard of it until a few years ago. Yeah. It was kept at bay. Yeah, but it is interesting because, probably, about 10 years ago is really the first time I had ever heard about the Enneagram. I'd heard of, and I assumed at the time, you have like DISC or all these other things. And I thought it was like the same thing, but obviously there's much more to it. And it was a gal that was here at Journey for a while. She was writing a book about it. And and then all of a sudden it was kind of everywhere here in town. And so, it's just been fascinating to watch how we as a community, as a church, have grabbed hold of it. What are we seeing? What are we seeing it as it's being used right now? What are the ways that we're seeing it be helpful? The ways that it's
we both looked at each other. You want to take that?
Okay, or
I see it happening. I see a lot happening. As it became sort of released into the world, it kind of escaped from the original schools it was being taught. And then, the beauty of that is that more people get access to this sort of insights. The downside is that, of course, that it kind of gets reduced to sort of cocktail party discussion, and we sort of use them as labels and even excuses for bad behavior or ways to think that if I know about your type, right? I think you identify as a 2, Sam.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So then I can deceive myself into thinking that I know everything about you because I could describe a 2, and I don't, right? There's layers and layers. We are infinitely more than our type. I think at the root, the Enneagram isn't really meant to be about personality, right? It's different than those other systems you've mentioned. I use those other systems. I'm certified in Myers-Briggs and Hogan and other things. And all those systems have their use. What the Enneagram really is meant to get to is less about your personality and more about what you automatically pay attention to based on your motivation. It's not what you do, but why you do it.
Okay, yeah.
And so often we don't know why we do what we do. And the older we get, the more we have these little fender benders in the rearview mirror of our lives, and we kind of question and go, I don't know why that happened. Why does that pattern show up? Why does this kind of person always trigger me? Why is this situation always, causing me so much difficulty? Why did the strategy that worked in the first half of my life not work in the second half of my life? And the Enneagram is meant to get into the layers and layers of the why, the fears, the desires, often that we're not very conscious of. So
is it rooted out of our childhood wounds as well, or does it
largely
reveal our childhood wounds?
That's a good question, Suze. I think both. I think it's rooted out of these wounding messages that we enter. So we have our temperament. We enter the world with our prefactory settings, right? We've got genetics, and there's even a growing body of
prefactory settings.
There's a growing body of research about epigenetics, which is actually like genetic expression that changes based on our own traumas and even our parents. We inherit certain ways that we show up. And then we enter a story that is largely inhospitable to our truest nature, right? We say it's not going to be safe to be this way in this world. And you start to learn how to adapt. And that's part of our survival strategy.
Which connects to the whole idea of we live in a broken world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And some of it's, it's not all on the indexing on the bad side of things. Some of it's this is the kind of humor my family uses. So I learned to kind of be humorous in that way. This is the kind of language, this is what we talk about. This is how we pray. This is how we do these things. And you start to learn how to become those things, because we're really meant to contain all 9 types of the Enneagram and access them as we need to.
Okay.
But as we grow older, we become more fixed, and we say, this is the strategy by which I will see the world, act in the world, and behave in the world.
So that then becomes the number we tend to identify
I like to
with.
say you don't have an Enneagram type. Your Enneagram type has you.
That's so interesting.
That's cool.
Because I did a few years ago, I did some EMDR work with a therapist. And when I went back and discovered a moment that really shaped my life, that my little whatever the lens of trauma, now I see that and I think to myself, oh, that's the day I became a 3. Because I was 12 years old. And it's just and I see so much through that particular lens. I understand myself more through that particular thing. So
I have a similar I did EMDR, and I have some similar stories like that too, where you go back and have that illumination.
So as we use it, it informs us, It informs. But I kind of like we talk about it's not a personality test or whatever. But being around and just you hear people talk about their different, like what they are on the disc or what Myers-Briggs, and so that language kind of got used in a similar way with the Enneagram, and I feel like that's why it's kind of sucked into that whole world, even though it serves a different purpose. But what for us as we walk through our faith journey, and we, as we start to understand this a little better, or maybe we take the test, we start to get curious about it. What are ways that we can kind of lean into this to help us as we run towards Jesus as well? Does that make sense? Does that question make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think so. Again, I'm an Enneagram 1, bless me, and I can get stuck on what I first learned. Yeah, a little black and white. But it was taught to me as this tool of compassion and self-compassion, and I think above all, it gives you another excuse to be gentle with yourself and with other people, and to say, they, just as you are locked in, so are they. Yeah. And I think it's funny that I've been studying it. I've been in therapy. I've done spiritual direction. I do spiritual direction. I'm trying hard to be a human. Yeah. I'm not like coasting. Right. And I still am feeling really stuck in my passion of needing to be right. And I have begged my husband to give me feedback on if I'm hurting his feelings, because he just is a giver and he just doesn't tend to think in those terms. Yeah. And he did. And my first response was like to tear up because I missed the mark. Like I didn't do the right thing. And I was and I had to, luckily I'm old enough and have had enough therapy to say, to not make it about me in that moment, but just to be aware that even at 51, almost 2, I am still driven by this need to do the right thing. And even in a conversation with someone I love who did what I asked him to grow us, I'm still like capable of making that all about me and all about. And so there's an opportunity to be gentle and say, oh, I got my feelings really pricked. And that's okay. Yeah. This is what happens. This is who we are. But how do I show up beyond even that self? Right. And say, there's other goals, there's deeper goals, there's something else. And I think it's, it just makes all the difference in how you interact with other people and how you interact with your own self. And I think to have that gentleness even with yourself, I could have then spent the next hour being mad at myself for being stuck on that. Right. And now I'm like, that's not going to serve anybody. Where I just need to let that go. Yeah. But thank goodness I knew. That's awesome. I knew enough to be like, oh, here I go again. Yeah. There I go again. And
that's I love that, and I love that. Like in my marriage with Angela, and learning as we've learned a little bit about these things, the common language that it's given us too, and some understanding. Just to your point, like how and. In our marriage, I feel like that's been such a thing that's bonded us even more. You know. What about you, Scott? What were you thinking about?
Well, I was thinking about a couple things. One is I was thinking about ones. Ones are the most the challenging type. Probably can be one of the most not most challenging types. One of the most challenging types to do growth work, because the only way for a one to truly get better is to get worse. Right, is to allow themselves to make mistakes and to not try to improve. They spend their whole lives trying to improve, and each
we try hard.
So it's like, as you learn about types, what you learn about largely is the strategy I employ is like holding the passion in place, and I need to start figuring out how to let go of that story, right? Because so much of our type brings us gifts. It protects us, like we talked about. It gives us access to love and security, and it kind of works for us. But in many ways, it's kind of the limited self or the false identity. And, even if you look at, and this might be too academic for a podcast.
Go for it, man.
Even if you look at the symbol of the Enneagram, right?
Yeah.
The circle, it's a circle, a triangle, and a hexad all coming together, and they all represent the sort of connective tissue between each of the types, but they also have other symbolism. The circle being that we're all from the same creation. We're all one, right? And the triangle has this other symbolic meaning around the creation process. We won't go into all that, but what I will point to is the triangle unifies the three centers of intelligence. So there's 3 body types, 8, 9, and 1.
Okay.
And there's 3 head types, 5, 6, and 7, and 3 heart types, 2, 3, and 4. And the triangle unites and connects those center points. So the center of the body type, point 9, down to point 6, which is the center of the head type, and then over to point 3, which is the center of the heart type, and back to 1. And then the numbers to the left and right of those centers are variations of the center. You can look at the symbolism of the Enneagram as point 9. 9s are the peacemaker of the type of the Enneagram. They are probably most prone to be asleep to their own desires and what they truly want. But they also symbolize that that's true of all of us, that we've all kind of gone to sleep to our truest nature as image bearers. Like we just forget our identity.
Yeah.
And then if you travel the triangle down from 9 to 6, that's the center of the head triad, or the center of the fear space.
Okay.
So symbolically, it's like we lose contact with our true identity and we get into a fear moment, a sort of existential crisis.
Yeah.
Right. And then that sends us over to 3, which is the center of the image triad. And we put on a false identity. We sort of say, in response to losing contact with my true identity, I go through a major fear point, and it sends me over to, okay, so how am I going to protect myself?
Wow.
And it's sort of that sort of, it can put us back into chapter 3 in Genesis of that sort of, we have everything we need, but we don't believe that we do. And so we need to access something outside of ourselves to protect ourselves, right? And so we almost identify with the tree instead of the identity. So in some ways, I think of all 9 Enneagram types as our own proverbial tree that is our way of saying, when God comes looking for us, I was afraid, so I hid myself.
Wow.
So this is the way I'm hiding myself. I'm hiding myself behind this. Every single one of us walked into this room today partially hiding parts of ourselves, right? Not willing to show all the way up, because we're always... So when an 8's being super powerful and aggressive, they're hiding the vulnerability. When a 9's like being go with the flow, they're hiding their own desires and wills and opinions. And 1s are being perfectionistic, they're hiding the desire to be able to make mistakes. And they all have that, right? When 2s are being too focused on everybody else, they're hiding connection with their own needs, right?
For sure.
3s are hiding behind success. 4s are hiding behind this need for uniqueness and depth. 5s are hiding behind information and distance and protecting themselves that way. And 6s are hiding behind questions and doubts and trying to surface, all sorts of things. And 7s are hiding behind their plans and staying out of the present moment. And so in each of these ways, that's sort of what's happening. And there is a path, and I think what the Enneagram offers us that other systems don't, is some insights on how to start walking our way back to our truest identity.
That's awesome.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
As you were talking, I was thinking of that verse, which I cannot remember where it is.
In the Bible.
But it's in the Bible, people, where you dig your own cisterns. It's like this idea of this is the way we dug our own path where we thought would get us back to our true self.
Yeah.
And it's not.
It's not.
It doesn't work.
No.
And I think that's the gift I've seen in spiritual direction with every type that comes in is they're there because it's not working. We all know when it's not working.
Yeah.
It's not working. And the thing is Jesus, if you're going to take it back to Jesus and what we can expect from him, it's that he has a way to nurture, comfort, meet, companion every single type in a really unique way. And so I love what Scott said about how I can know you're a 2 and I don't know almost anything about you. But if I do know the type of a spiritual directee coming in, I do have a sense of what might hit or not.
Like a starting point, maybe?
A starting point,
a
characteristic about who Jesus is, a story about how he lived his life that might feel more relevant to you. Like, I do need to be right, but you can't tell an 8 like, it's okay if you're not doing the right thing. They're like, I do not care.
Yeah.
Like it's a way of just entering a conversation and introducing them to an aspect, because Jesus is symbolically all 9 as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, we can introduce an aspect of that which actually soothes and centers and calms and nurtures that aching part of them.
Yeah.
And going back to what Scott said, like, I imagine that they're coming into spiritual direction because they've been hiding and covering and they're looking for God again. They're wanting to hear the voice of God to come out of that.
Yes. They might not know that, but
Right.
yes.
Right.
Life just isn't usually working. But yes. Yeah. And I do love that all of the ancient desert mothers and fathers all had some belief, and you're not going to find this in the Bible, that there's like this little piece of your soul that's just God's and God's alone. And I've always loved that idea. Whether it's true or not, I don't, who knows?
Can you say more about what that is?
It just means that your soul has been beaten up and bruised by your life, your story, your genetics, your environment, your people, your all the things. But there is in you a completely untouched piece of your soul that God has been protecting and keeping and holding for all time. And it's a really beautiful idea.
Yeah.
And
like, it can't be.
It can't be ruined.
So it
can't be ruined.
No,
and it can't be, and it's not a type.
Right.
It is simply God's.
Yeah.
And so I do think there is this opportunity to come to stillness and to come to presence with Jesus, to find that aspect that then begins to inform the whole rest of yourself, which is out there doing its work.
So would that little piece be kind of the true self?
That's what I was curious about. That's interesting.
I don't really ever go there. I just, it's just something a lot of mystics taught.
Okay.
So I don't actually ever take it I don't extrapolate on that concept.
You just kind of hold it symbolically.
I just
as like
hold
this
it
safe
symbolically.
place that God
and it's a way to inspire hope.
Yeah.
Like nothing you've ever done is the final story. There's
Right.
always a chance for a new beginning. There's always a new way. So
It's pretty beautiful.
I don't know. I don't know that I do more with it. I don't want to psychologize it. But I just think it's there.
That's cool. So I'm trying to think how to ask this. What are some ways, if I know the number that I identify with, and it's easy to, like you said, Scott, use it as an excuse for bad behavior or just, I wouldn't even say like not just bad behavior, but an excuse for not stepping into the fullness of who God made me to be. What are some ways that that we can get underneath our numbers and really use the knowledge of our number as a tool, as a way forward with ourselves and with God?
It's a great question. And this is what I've spent the last, 12 years trying to figure out for myself. I think the starting place is, especially for those listening that may be brand new to this, I come back to this sort of 3 centers, the heart, the head, and the body. And, we are meant to access, so that's our total sense-making system, right? So the body represents the sort of physical movement, tactile, action-oriented part of ourselves, right? It's this actual body that represents that form of intelligence. The brain, the 5, 6, and 7, that represents our predicting system, right? Our brains are tucked away in skulls with no direct access to the world, but they run on a series of predictions about what they expect is about to happen, and that's what you see 5, 6, and 7s do, right? Like they're constantly trying to predict and reach conclusions. And heart types are all about connection and relationship and all of that. And the first step, I think, is to notice which center you live in, right? Your type is dealing with a particular strategy for living in the center that you've relegated yourself to without being able to access the other centers. Okay. So a good starting place is to start to make access to the other centers. So as a heart type, I need to access my body and my head a little bit more, right? So some of it is just practicing what I call a purposeful pause between stimulus and response. So something happens, and instead of just reacting out of our conditioning, because that's so much of what our type is, we create a purposeful pause and we step back from the lens of the centers and say, what is my head telling me right now, right?
Yeah.
What is my body telling me right now? Like, what frame am I holding up to this situation? Is it accurate? What am I not seeing here?
Like you're checking in with all three of those.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure. Yeah,
that's cool. That's
I'm
really
cool. Trying that kind of at least grounds me to something pragmatic to kind of say, because my tendency is to react so fast out of my programming, my types conditioning, that you do the thing that you've always done and you expect some kind of different result and you don't get it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm always coveting sort of, this like trying to impress people or trying to put points on the board and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, I have to hit the pause button and kind of step back and go, I got to get in my head and go, what am I believing about myself right now? Mm-hmm. What am I believing about you right now that I think will impress you? And why do I think that matters? And all of that. I keep hitting the mic. Sorry.
It's all good. So that's what the pads are for.
Yeah. So that's a starting place. And I think beyond that, it's really understanding, reading, listening to podcasts, whatever you need to understand all about your type and getting honest about what it's telling you, because there's going to be some stuff in there you're not going to want to hear. When I heard that the passion of 3 is self-deception, I was like, self-deceptive. I'm the most authentic person on the planet.
Yeah.
Look how authentic I am.
I'm not a liar.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And then when I realized, I do this subtle shift and I'm not even conscious of it. It's not deceiving others, it's self-deception.
Yes.
That I become a little bit of a chameleon and I kind of try to quickly use my emotions instead of getting in touch with my own emotions of what I want. A 3 uses emotions to read a room and figure out what's needed, and then slowly adapt everything without even trying.
Yep.
And I remember my wife even pointing out, she goes, every time you come back from London, you start saying words very weird, right? You start like, you don't have an accent, but you like start saying diary instead of calendar, right? And like, you start doing, I'm like, I do that, don't I? Like,
that's really funny because when I get around somebody with an accent, I start picking it up.
I think that's a
really
thing.
funny.
Yes, it's that chameleon thing. And it's
You're not even aware of it.
Yeah.
Because my wounding message is it wasn't okay to have my own identity or my own emotions.
Right.
And so now I direct all my attention outwards. So it's a difficult question to answer in short form because it's like there's a long journey of getting honest and confronting with compassion and self-friendship these stories and these wounds to like, and that takes time. It takes a long time. This is not there's no hack.
Right.
It's a long play.
Well, I do remember after learning more about my number and being a pastor, how interesting it was to admit that like, I'm really comfortable with your feelings. I can sit with you with your trauma and your feelings and your experience all day long.
Yeah.
But I don't really like mine. I don't want to be with mine at all. And so learning that, like having that awareness and then like gently like entering into that relationship with myself has been life-changing. But I'm still always so aware that I am so much more prone to sit with other people and their stuff and really can't be bothered with my own. Like it is really, truly a discipline for me to do that purposeful pause and check in. And I like for a long time, I didn't even know what checking in meant. Like, what does that mean? Check in with yourself. I don't know. What are you talking
I've got
about?
other people to check in with. Like
exactly.
that's a two. That's a two's life.
I know.
I'm fine. I got other people.
And I think too, what Scott said about the centers, every single type then has a center they're more likely to ignore than another. It's like if you're focused on one, you don't utilize the other two as well, but there's one you really
for me it's the body.
Okay. So you're talking about the body, head. Okay.
So everybody has a repressed center, and a lot of teachers really do believe that spiritual growth is around accessing that repressed center. And so one way to get underneath is to engage spiritual practices that really highlight if you're not used. So technically my repressed center would be the head. Like I don't, because I'm so instinctive. I'm body. I just do. And then I feel very strongly about what I just did, but I haven't thought about it. I don't, is that mine to do? Was I supposed to do that? Is that the right thing to do? I don't even always know that. I just know instinctively that I
to do
move. And so what are some practices I can engage that are going to make me think first? And that's why I was so obsessed with the examine because you have to think through your day.
And
notice.
I would
So
guess
good.
Yes.
not just thinking, but what you're thinking about, right?
What I'm thinking
Because what
about.
you're always thinking about is what can be improved, how I can be better, how others can be better, how the world can be better.
Can I bang my head
Yeah.
on the microphone?
Yeah, you can.
Can I bang my head?
Right.
Is that all right?
I say it with love and compassion. No, but I mean, but I think I wanted to like just jump on that a little
Yeah.
bit because
Yes, it's fair.
it's what we're thinking about, right? Like you're
Yes.
a 2 and you're
Yeah.
thinking all the time, but you're
Yeah.
thinking about other people,
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
as opposed to thinking about your own needs.
What I need. Yes.
And maybe even pridefully denying that you have needs because
I've
other
been,
people
I've
have
been
more
known
needs
to
than you.
do that
Yeah.
once or twice.
Right. But I think that's to illuminate Katie's point. I think it's
Yes.
it's not just what we're
Right.
doing, thinking, because we all think, do,
Right.
and feel.
Right.
But it's what our attention goes to. That
Yeah.
kind of comes back to where we started, right? The
Yes.
Enneagram shows you where your focus of attention gets hijacked over and over and over.
That's so helpful, man. That's really good.
It is.
That's really good.
And so to have a framework, to have a practice that you can do that engages you with
Yeah.
you and you with God, I think is so important. Like some people really should never try to sit and pray.
Yeah.
You should walk around your block.
Yeah.
Every single time. Some people should be on their knees. Like you have to get into your body some way. Some people really need to mindlessly drift
Yeah. Yeah.
in contemplative prayer or whatever. I think there's just certain practices that will help you not respond in your normal way.
Yeah.
And encouraging, like
Yeah.
step into those that don't necessarily feel
Right.
the-
And there's all
the
kinds of
natural
resources
response.
out there that'll
That's
say,
good.
what are good spiritual practices for this type? There's
Yeah.
a million resources
Okay.
out there.
Okay. Any that you would recommend or any that like off the top of your head? Okay.
Bless
No
me
worries.
with
No
the top
worries.
of my
No
head
worries.
today. No, it's all gone from the top of my head.
No worries, I
Sam.
just didn't
it
know
just
there-
went right off. It's gone.
Mine too.
It's gone.
So, yeah,
I just know they exist.
there's resources out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have actually a funny, interesting story about that. So I meet with the spiritual director once a month, and a few months ago, something happened, and I came in with a lot of anger, like a lot of anger, and she was like noticing that I probably wasn't in touch with my body and how I was holding that, and so she was like, we have to do something to help move your anger through your body so that it can become helpful anger and not harmful anger. And so she, as a spiritual director, this is so funny. She was like, I want you to just, and she asked me if I was up for this at first, and to which I was, because I'll do anything she tells me to do. But she said, I want you to move your body in a way that feels right, that feels good and helpful to you. And she's like, and I will mimic you just as an act of bearing witness to your anger. And I was like, okay, this is so weird. But we did it. And it was like, I just like found myself like doing all these like intense like yoga poses and holding them. And like literally felt like I was squeezing the anger out of my body. And it felt so good afterwards.
awesome.
But it was such a example of me being a 3 and not being connected to my body because, but quite frankly, for many years I was told not to listen to my body.
Yeah.
And but connecting my anger to that and then walking out of there like with a little bit more peace and knowing more what I needed. And so there's probably
so cool.
resources, but there's 1,000 different ways to
Yeah,
do any
yeah.
of those things.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
Mm-hmm. And it's cool that she's like stepped into that moment with you too. Like,
Totally.
like did that's
She's
all.
You'll have to show me those poses.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes I could use them.
Right. I know. But that's what, to me, like that's what the practice of yoga has been really helpful for me in that way. And even like if you come to Journey and you've prayed with me at the end of the service, even like the practice of holding my hands out in a posture of receiving, that means something to me because otherwise I won't receive. Like I can go about my merry day and forget to stop and receive from God. And so to me, the body work has become so important because it's not natural to me.
Well, I think it's not natural to the culture, right? In the West,
Right.
we prioritize the head over everything.
Yeah.
We think that's the only form of intelligence. Our bodies are just sticks for carrying around the brain, right? And that
Yeah.
couldn't be the farthest from the truth,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so I think even body types, right? So even at the center you're in, you can lose touch with what that center offers you, right? Right. I'm a heart type. You're a heart type. but we both struggle to access our own emotions, in part because we're trying to live our whole lives from that image conscious place, not accessing the other two, but we end up misusing the center and the gifts of our own home. And it's important to understand that, and I think this might be drifting too far afield, but neuroscience is actually catching up to, I think, what the Enneagram map shows us about the head, heart, and body.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that is this idea of, you're going to see more and more about this idea of interoception, which is that signals are constantly coming from the body up the vagus nerve into the brain. And the brain, as we were starting to say earlier, is interpreting those signals based on its context, right? And so the body often does know things before the brain does. And they've shown that people who have developed interoceptive sensitivity are more successful in certain jobs, right? They studied financial traders in the UK, and people who were more in touch with the signals from their body outperformed financial traders who weren't.
Wow.
Right? So the body actually knows things, and the brain is predicting, and then the emotions come online to tell you, is there a delta? Is there an error between what the body's experiencing and the head is predicting?
Yeah.
And that sometimes shows us our biggest need. And this happens in the most benign ways. I was at lunch a few months ago with my mom and my youngest daughter, and we were wrapping up, and I think they'd already stood up, and I decided to take one more sip of water before we left. And my brain was expecting and predicting a big, nice, refreshing sip of ice water. But I'd grabbed my daughter's Sprite, and I took a sip of it, and I felt disgusted. I had this visceral, emotional reaction. I was angry. It was just like,
dare you drink Sprite?
And if I just paid attention to the emotion, I would have concluded I hate Sprite. I don't hate Sprite. I don't seek after Sprite. I'm not going to come to your house and ask for Sprite, but I don't hate Sprite. Right? So, but my emotion was doing what it was supposed to do. There's an error. What if that had been cleanser? What if that had been something dangerous?
It's a
right?
warning.
Like there's a warning.
Yeah.
And my brain needs to come on and go, let's make quick sense of it. And it quickly did. It was like just some unwanted calories, a jolt of sugar, and some artificial lemon lime. Right. But that's the interplay of the body, heart, and head all day long.
And
every day.
is that like the whole fight, flight, or
Freeze, fawn.
yeah?
I did. Hey,
I know.
right there.
There it is.
Yeah. Is that
Yeah,
part of that?
it can be.
into it.
Yeah. But it's alerting you to an unmet need, or an error or a danger.
What you're saying, Scott, is that's happening all day,
Happening all day, every day.
constantly. It's happened since we've been sitting here.
Yes.
Right? Like it's
So the invitation
learning to
is,
be
how do I
aware.
get more in touch with all of these senses?
So
This is
good.
the totality of my sense-making system in the world.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason we need to keep going back to gentleness is because when you are centered in a certain type, you have a passion, you're a certain body, head, heart. When you are wounded in that way, like I think a lot of us really judge our own wounding, and we think, why am I so hurt by that? Why was that so painful? Why can't I get over it? Why is that not? And to recognize that for some people to be wounded in a certain way is more damaging than it might be to somebody else.
Yeah.
So we cannot judge our own trauma. We cannot judge our own wounding. And that is why Jesus is the one who can nurture and calm and just like pat down those places in us that are really hurt and struggling. But all of that self-knowledge has to come with gentleness, or we will just be kicking our own butts all day, every day to try to do better. Right? Like but just to recognize that that's just how we are.
Yeah.
And there's ways to grow.
That's awesome. Wow.
I love that. It reminds me, I think that the number one takeaway from doing any of this work to me is to cultivate curiosity,
Yes.
right? In ourselves and with each other.
I love it that you brought that up. We talk about that a lot in here, curiosity and just the importance. And that word just kept coming up in my brain the whole time as we've been talking is, we get to be curious with ourselves and curious with others. And, you know, and how beautiful that is in relationship, you know, in our relationship with Jesus and our relationship with one another. And
How different would the
ways.
world be right now if we were all just more curious?
That's right, man. That's so good. Well, I think that's a good place to land it right there.
But they should plug their work.
Yes, plug your work. Please tell us about what you do. Please, just a little bit.
I have a book called The Enneagram of Emotional Intelligence. You can get it anywhere that online books are sold. And then I also created a tool called the Enneaflip, which if you're looking for practical ways
It's
to
really cool.
sort of have a memory jogger and do some side-by-side comparisons, like, okay, I figured out I'm a 3, but I'm going to go meet with a 1. I can do a sort of side-by-side created that for workplaces or whatever kind of
Where can
teams.
is there a spot
that
they
is
can
on
get that?
swayleadership.com. So that's only sold on that one site, Sway Leadership.
Cool.
And you can find me if you want to engage in coaching, scottallender.com.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you, Scott. Katie?
Well, katiemullin.com.
Katiemullin.com.
Or ask Suzie.
Okay.
AskSuzie.com.
AskSuzie.com.
I'm buying that domain.
If you are feeling like it would be helpful for you to have a witness to your spiritual journey in this stage of whatever you're going through.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys for being with us
guys.
today. Yeah, so awesome. And
Thank you.
thanks for joining us on this episode of Journey on My Mind, and we will see you guys soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Journey on My Mind. If you enjoyed it, please help us spread the word by leaving us a review and sharing it on your social media. Journey on My Mind is a production of Journey Church in Brentwood, Tennessee. Edwin Rivera III is the show's producer, with technical assistance from Randy Hansen. Grant Opperman edits the show. If you have a suggestion for a future topic or a question, you can text us at 615-861-9503. And if you would like to talk to someone about spiritual or mental health issues, you can email our care pastor, Sam Barnhart, at sam@journeytn.com.